So you're thinking about getting into voiceover, but you're wondering if your home computer is going to be sufficient to run all of the voiceover software, the recording programs, all of the things that you need as a voiceover artist. Will my computer work? Or do I need to buy a new one? Let's talk about it. Hey, everybody, welcome back to my channel. So, you're wondering if your home computer is going to be sufficient for running all of the voiceover software, the recording programs. Is it going to be enough, or do I need to buy a new one? Well, the question is really, what do you plan to do with your voiceover business? And I ask that question because when I first started voiceover, that's all I wanted to do. Well, in reality, all I wanted to do was to record audiobooks. But I quickly learned that there are so many other applications for my voice than just audiobooks. And in the beginning, I had a laptop that I used, and I think it had 8 GB of RAM, which is basically the horsepower of the computer, right? And it did just fine. And me not knowing anything about anything at that point, as far as voiceover was concerned, it did just fine. It was able to apply my plugins. It did all of the mastering and rendering that I needed it to do. But now that I've been in this business a little longer and have discovered many other applications for voiceover and all the other things that marry beautifully with it, like video, like think of multi-track sort of applications like mixing in music or mixing in multiple voices, things like that. I think it's really going to come down to what you want to do with voiceover. And you may not even know, much like I did in the beginning, just how broad this industry is in terms of use and other things, other types of media that marry beautifully with voiceover. So I would say if you're not one that likes to drop a bunch of money on a computer, much like myself, then I would say your home computer is probably just fine to start with. I would say at a minimum, in terms of speed, maybe 8 GB of RAM would be sufficient. Just as a point of reference, my current computer has about 64 gigs of RAM and 18 cores and all of these, high-powered things. But I've also discovered, as I mentioned before, that I have really broadened my offerings in terms of, in my voiceover career. I not only do voiceover for e-learning and video games and commercial work and audiobooks, but I've also gotten into meditation. I've also gotten into ADR. I've also gotten into video narration, where I actually insert the voiceover into the video and deliver the finished video back to the client. I've also gotten into PowerPoint narration, where I have converted PowerPoints into video and overlaid that with a voiceover track and a music track. So it's really going to depend on what you need, how much horsepower you need. So if I had known then what I know now, I would have started out with a much higher powered computer, just to save myself from having to purchase another one in the near future, to have more speed with rendering, with more speed with applying plugins, with just doing multiple things at the same time to save me time. But if you're not in the market for a new computer at this time, then don't fret. I'm sure your home computer would work just fine. It's not going to be as fast or be able to do multiple things at the same time, but at this point in your career, you probably don't need it to until later. Then you can invest in a computer that's got a little bit more horsepower or RAM, right? Your processing power. But another thing that I want you to consider if you're in the market for a new computer, um, a few things that I did not realize that I needed to keep in mind at the time was your I/O, which are your inputs and your outputs. Most computers these days, I think, have USB-C or Thunderbolt connectivity. I think when I was in the market for a computer, a lot of things were still USB or USB-C or both. Also, HDMI. You need to consider what kind of or how many monitors you plan to run and make sure that the computer that you're looking at has the ability to run at least one external monitor. But if you need two monitors, you might need to look for two display outputs. As far as interfaces go for your microphone, most of those connectors, I think nowadays, are going to be either USB-C, Thunderbolt, or USB connectivity, where it plugs into your computer. So if you're looking at a particular interface that you'd like to get in the future, it would be smart to sort of future-proof yourself in the computer that you purchase to make sure that it has the connectivity that you're going to be needing in the future. As far as looking at what kind of connectivity your interface is going to need. How many monitors do you plan to run? Does it have the display connectivity for those? Is it quiet? Does it have a lot of fans? I have a gaming, well, it's pretty close to a gaming computer. So it has, I think, 8 fans. So it's rather loud. But if you can find a computer that has no fans or is silent, and I do this because I haven't found a computer yet that was completely silent. But the noise that your computer makes is also going to be a factor when you're recording voiceover. Namely, audiobook work needs to have a specific noise floor. So a quiet computer is something you're also going to be looking for. So you need to be looking at, again, the connectivity that it has, right? As far as the connectivity for any kind of external software or external hardware that you're going to be using. Like if you use a Stream Deck or if you use the interface, make sure that you have enough connectivity for those. Your displays, how many displays are you going to be using? Your monitors, right? Is it going to have enough connectivity for you? And then also the gigabytes in RAM or your processing power and how quiet is it going to be? Those are things to definitely keep in mind when looking for a new computer. And another thing to consider that I just forgot is where are you going to sit the computer? If it does have some fans or it does have a little bit of a noise floor to it, if it's not completely silent, where do you plan to put it? If it does make noise, you don't want it close to your computer. You want it as far away as possible in another section of the house or in another part of the room, just as far away from the computer or from the microphone that you can get. So if it is in a high traffic area, you might want to consider getting a laptop, something that's small that you could, put high above so no one steps on it, right? Or if it's a computer tower, are you going to have room for it wherever you plan to put it? So mapping out your recording space in terms of where you're going to put this computer might also have a huge impact on which one you select, right? So there's a lot more to it than even I initially considered in the beginning. So the last thing that I can think of that you might need to consider in purchasing a new computer is Wi-Fi or internet connectivity. Having a plugged-in internet connection is going to be much better than a Wi-Fi connection because Wi-Fi, as good as it may be, can still be spotty and drop out and lose connectivity, right? You want a direct hardwire connection to your internet when you are working with clients in live directed sessions. You'll get a much better result with a wired internet connection than you will with Wi-Fi. So another thing to consider when looking for a new computer. I hope this video helped to sort of at least give you some ideas or some other things to look at when you're looking for a new computer for your voiceover business, or if your existing home computer has all of these things and they work just fine for you, it's probably just fine. But if you're watching this video and you have an additional thing or an additional comment or tip or advice that you'd like to pass on, please comment down below. It only helps anyone else looking for this information, so I appreciate that. Um, Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.